Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about 3 particular specific shifts that you can start to take with your mindset so that you can see yourself moving in a positive trajectory with forward momentum in a positive direction. So the first one that I have for you, because I just want to get right into it, is standing in the gap versus standing in the gain. So I'm literally going to use my scenario around me right now, okay? The basement is in a little bit of a messy state. We have some furniture that we're moving around, and obviously my lighting is not ideal for this video. Because of my tripods and because of my microphone, I can't really move things over there to be in better lighting. So I could stand in the gap and say, oh, well, it's messy and I don't have good lighting and I'm not going to have a good, video to put out for people, and I'm just not even going to do it. Or I could stand in the gain and I can look at the fact that my watch hours are up over 400 hours since the beginning of 2024, and I am actually out on my own creating a little bit more independence for myself and my family compared to last year when I was living at my mom's. And I can look at the fact that I have information that I can share with you that is going to help change your life. And that's standing in the gain. What have I gained? What have I accomplished in the last year? What have I acquired in the last year? And that's the difference between standing in the gap versus standing in the gain. When you're standing in the gap, you're standing in a place, or you're even thinking or putting yourself in a place, perceiving yourself in a place even, where you are missing something. There's a gap, there's a disconnect. It's not the way that you want. It's not ideal. It's very much like, why even try? Versus standing in the gain is, well, in the last year, I've acquired so much more independence. In the last year, I have acquired so much more watch hours. In the last year, I've acquired so much more skills necessary to help other people create these shifts so that they can start to change their life, especially around, I work with people who are online coaches, a lot of fitness trainers, a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with fitness trainers, copywriters, ADHD coaches, you name it. I work with those people online. And so acquiring these skills over the last 6 months, especially with my NLP certification, has allowed for me to be able to come onto a YouTube video and share these tactics and strategies with you so that you can start to implement them and see positive change in your life. So the first shift is definitely going to be standing in the gap. First shift is definitely standing in the gap versus standing in the gain. And it's kind of leading me into my next shift, which I was just touching on my NLP certification. And this second shift has a lot to do with what I learned going through that NLP practitioner certification. A lot of it comes down to the questions that you're asking yourself. So this is number 2. Ask yourself better questions. Oftentimes when we're standing in the gap, we ask ourselves questions like, why is this happening to me? Why did this happen today? Why is it happening this way, right? Why kinds of questions, literally starting the question with why. And asking yourself better questions is actually asking yourself questions that start with what and how. And the reason why is because when you start to use questions started off with what, how, when, then you start to come to a little bit more of an understanding about where your beliefs are and where your internal representation, where your mind, your frame of mind literally is. So, for example, I had a personal trainer client tell me, she said, I feel like I have to acquire a different level of abundance for me to be able to do that. And the question that I asked her was, when did you decide that? When did you decide that? Because for all she knows, there's an opportunity out there for her that it doesn't require a necessary abundance level, right? Like she could go with a friend and she could be sponsored and then she doesn't necessarily have to pay for that trip. So when did she decide that that is what has to happen in order for her to do this dream that she has? When did you decide that? Another question that I have become very aware of asking myself is, where did this come from? What is the purpose of this? What is the function of this? What is my highest intention out of this? How am I working towards my highest self with what I'm doing? Because when I ask myself those questions, or even when you ask yourself those questions, how are you working towards your highest self going through specific actions that you're taking? Then you can start to come to an actual answer. Well, I'm taking steps to learn how to become a controller so that I can understand finances and money at a very advanced business level, right? It's like you come up with an answer. You have an answer for the question versus when you say, why is this happening to me? Number one, you're standing in the gap. Number two, you're in victim mode. And number three, you can't actually come up with an answer because you're leaving the answer outside of you by saying why. Why is this happening to me? That's looking for a response back from someone. Whereas when you can say, what did I do to cause this? How did I act to cause this? When did I decide that this was going to happen? You're taking more control over the situation. And yes, there is a conversation about what's within your control versus what's not in your control. And we still want to ask ourselves questions that subtly point to us being in control in the situation because we want to make sure this is something within our control or something that's not within our control. Let's take, for an example, a car accident, right? One of my friends was telling me that she was driving down the road and a car flew up over the median and like basically slammed down in front of a car on the other side of the road. And she was driving as the car was coming upward before it came down, before gravity started to pull it down. So what did I do in that situation? Like, what could I have done in that scenario to prevent myself from getting into an accident? Actually, I could have sped up a little bit more. Did you speed up a little bit more? Yeah. So she took control of what she could take control of in that situation. What could she have done to help people in that scenario? Call the cops, call 911, which again, she did. So she did take control over the things that she could take control of within the circumstances scenario. There's things that she could not control, like that other person's speed on their way up, into the air, right? Like, what could she have done to prevent this from even happening? Well, nothing, because she wasn't the one responsible for it happening. It was the person on the other side of the median. So when you start to ask yourself better questions, then you can start to realize what you do have control over, what you have accomplished, what you have achieved, what you can stand in the gain for versus standing in the gap. It's also another quick mindset shift that you can play around with and that you can start to incorporate into your day-to-day processes by literally just asking yourself what, how, or when questions, because they're going to give you an answer. Now, the last mindset shift that I want to offer up here is a context reframe. Context reframes essentially are taking the context of the situation and reframing it. So let's say, for example, someone says, oh, she's so loud. Okay, she's speaking her truth and she's making it a point to tell people. That is a great quality to have. It's a reframe of how she's being described, okay? We want to describe our situations in an empowering way. And so when we say that we're speaking our truth, that's a more empowering thing to say than, oh, she's so loud. That's very judgmental. That's not very, that's very judgmental. It has a negative connotation. Even when you hear the sentence delivered, it sounds very like, well, she's so loud. Like, that's her problem, right? Whereas when you say she's speaking her truth, then you're allowing for honesty to come through. You're allowing for a different version of that person to come through that might not have been seen in another light from another person if they said, oh, well, she's so loud, right? So context reframes are great. A lot of times people do reframes way more often than any of these other strategies because they're not necessarily aware of the other strategies, and they are aware of reframing it because people will literally say, well, how can we reframe that? So reframes are really valuable and very handy. The fourth point that I'm actually going to give you as a bonus is being aware of your language. I used to be a big butt person, okay? Not like a big butt, although I do think sometimes I do have a big butt, but like a big butt in my language type of person. I would say, oh, well, the cat ate her food, but she threw it up. So it was like, well, I'm going to take this back. When you use a but, it's like, well, she ate, but never mind. It's like you're taking it back. Like, I'm going to give you something and then I'm going to take it back. Whereas if you say, and, well, the cat ate her food and she threw up, right? Then you're like, oh, well, I have this and I have this. Now you're adding more to the conversation. You're adding more to what is being said and talked about amongst all of you, amongst everyone, amongst yourself even. And so I've become very aware recently of using the word and in my languaging much more frequently than the word but. By changing the way that you use words, you actually are going to start to change your mind because your words are actually your programming for your mind. Your beliefs, how you talk, all of your actions, all of these things are stemmed from how you think. And for some people like myself, because I'm an auditory digital person, I hear the words when I'm thinking. So we'll go over the internal representations, like if you're visual or audio digital, later on in a different video. However, I wanted to put it in this as a bonus because the language factor of just simply switching out some words has been incredible in terms of shifting my own frame of mind. So I wanted to give that to you today as a powerful shift that you can also start to incorporate. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. And if there's something you're curious about, or if you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments down below. I'm going to put some links in the description so that you can head out to I have a free EFT tapping for financial overwhelm, and I have some other freebies for you to grab. I'm also going to be running an email newsletter. So that's going to include things around money, things around manifestation, things around mindset and NLP. It'll probably also include one time a month, a channeled hypnosis or subliminal that I will either ask you for direction or one that is coming through for me. And I want to encourage you, if you're new, to subscribe. There's going to be so much more coming out around mindset and money and business. I really enjoyed still talking about manifestation and incorporating all these things together to help you transform and become a better version of yourself and create a better version of your business. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to encourage you to subscribe and turn on the notifications if you have not yet already, and I will see you in the next video.